Hey guys, so this will be another programming session where I'll continue working on my eSVG graphical user interface app in Rust with Egui. If you want, you can check out the last coding session where I started the app and we had a working application with Egui, a layout with a sidebar, resizable sidebar, and we were able to sort of render an SVG with the Egui's built-in image widget. Now, picking up from there, I did a couple of things off camera, primarily for the SVG rendering, because there were some issues. Let me show you what I did. So first of all, in that video, I had a couple of problems with even loading the SVG with the Egui image widget. In some cases, it was showing me that the bytes loader couldn't load the image. That was because I didn't have all the features of Egui extras right here. Let me zoom in a bit. Of Egui extras. I now load all loaders temporarily, but at that time I was expecting the SVG loader to load it, and I was missing some of the loaders, so I couldn't basically render the image successfully, except with a macro. Now, I did render it like this, and the performance was not good. And that's expected because let's go back to our app. This is Immediate Mode GUI. So essentially, we were loading and rendering the image in this function. And that would happen at every frame or whenever it re-renders. Currently, GUI doesn't re-render all the time because it's in this sort of semi-retained mode where it re-renders only if there's animations or input, but we still don't want to reload and re-render, re-rasterize the entire SVG on every UI update, because that's expensive rasterizing. The thing is, we don't need to rasterize more than once when we load the SVG. In my opinion, that would be optimal because I already implemented zoom. We would like zoom and panning, but even with zoom, we wouldn't offer zoom to infinity. Right now, I've constrained zoom to 0.1 scale to 8. That is 8x the original size of the image. And that should be enough for most cases. And with that constraint, it's better, I think, to rasterize the image once at the largest size, which is 8x its original size, and then just scale it with the GPU while rendering. That's much faster. And I mean, I speculated that was much faster, and it seems to be, because here's what my end architecture for the image looks like. It's a little bit more complicated than just calling image and loading the SVG, but that is expected. So here's the central panel, which is essentially this part of the application where the SVG should be. And there let me just ignore that. I will ignore the drag and scale functionality right now, but only focus on the rendering of the image. Then I'll explain what I did for drag and scale. It's quite straightforward. It checks if there's texture. So we pre-load a texture, the SVG's texture, and pre-render it. And that happens when the app loads. We code once. Actually, on every update, we call this function. Update texture if needed. And update texture if needed is called only once when the texture is none. So when there's no texture currently. And that calls load SVG texture. And load SVG texture is this function I wrote that loads the SVG data. This is basically the fs read function. That is, if the data is not read. This is basically the plain text data of the SVG bytes. And if the SVG is not read, it loads it once, caches it, of course. Then we use RESVG, RESVG and USVG to essentially parse this SVG, and we get its original size. That's important, so that we have a constraint as to what we should rasterize to. We cache the original size in our application state, in the whole object, and then we use TinySkia to essentially create a pix map, and we render it to that raster size, which is the original size of the image times raster resolution. And raster resolution is actually, let me see, where do I calculate raster resolution? Of course, in the defaults. Sorry. Raster resolution is actually not exactly resolution. It's scale, but it's 8x. So this is the maximum amount of zoom. And the raster size is essentially 8x the original size of the image. And then we create a pix map with TinySkia. And of course, we transform. And then we render with RESVG using the pix map, the tree, and the transform. And that thing, we take the RGBA data and we create what is called in Egui a cover image. And that is essentially what we use to create a new texture. We want the SVG cache texture with the cover image and texture options. These are some default options. So all of that, actually, I still have last raster scale here. I don't need this anymore. Let me see. I'll explain what I was experimenting with. So yeah, I'll remove that last raster scale. I initially thought about a much more complicated architecture where I was re-rendering, re-rasterizing the SVG only at certain intervals. Like not at all zoom levels, but at between like 0.5, when the difference in scale between the last scale when I rasterized was more than 0.5. And that was too complicated and unnecessarily complicated, I think, because we're talking about a single SVG, and I think rasterizing it at the largest size is the most elegant solution in this case. I don't see any performance issues, to be fair, or memory issues or anything. And, all of this loads the SVG, rasterizes it to 8x, and saves it as a texture here in SVG texture. And that is called once when the app starts. It has to be called multiple times later. Right now, we're just loading this SVG from the source folder as an example. Later, the user will load an SVG, and when the user opens an SVG, that will basically execute all of that. Rasterize it, but that is an operation you execute once. And later, in the central panel, I take that texture, and there are a couple of things here that I will ignore for now. All these rects, they are used for pan and zoom, so I'll ignore that. But at the end, what's important is that I go image with the texture and I draw it. So this is basically what happens on every tick. We just draw a pre-loaded, pre-rendered, pre-rasterized texture, which is more performant. Now, what are these rects? What are these events? So, as I mentioned briefly, I have a couple of events here that I handle. Right now, I'm using the mouse scroll wheel. When you scroll, you zoom. That's an operation I would like to support because it's intuitive in image editors, any sort of image editor. I also have this slider here as a control. It won't be at this position for sure. Right now, I've just added it very quickly. Let me show you the code in case you're interested in that. Here they are. So I have a button that just has some text, and on click it sets my scale property, which is just default. and decrements it by 1.1 or increments it by 1.1 for zoom in. And I have a slider that accepts these properties, the variable it should mutate, the range, and some text. And that's one operation, the zoom, with either scrolling or this slider and buttons. And I have panning. And to implement these two, I needed to do a rectangle here, what's called a rect in this case, and paint inside of it. And I have, here's what I have. First of all, I get, let me see, what is this right here? Yeah, this is basically to center the image. But let's first focus on the on the dragging, let's say. So dragging works the following way. We create a rectangle right here, this dest rect. This dest rectangle is the rect that is in the central panel right here. And we draw the image inside of it. And it is created from the minimum size of the entire thing. Sorry. First of all, we have a central panel rectangle. That central panel rectangle allocates the available rectangle of the central panel right here. That's one rect. So one frame, you can think of it. And we also had the ability to sense drag here. So draggable events. This is how you make something interactive in Egui. Drag with itself also includes hover, because we need hover. And we need it because instead of just dragging, we also only support this mouse scroll wheel zoom if we hover over the central panel. So I use this rect that takes up the entire central panel space to detect these two events, if it's hovered and if it's dragged. And I use it right here. I got confused for a second because I have a second rect. I use it right here. And with a simple if in immediate mode, that's enough. Check if it's hovered. And then in that case, we do three things. First of all, we detect input, which in this case is scroll. And if the scroll is more than 0, I take the zoom factor, which is the scroll delta times some constant, which is zoom speed. And that's just a magic number I figured out. It basically controls how fast the user will zoom compared to scrolling. And that's a nice value that I just figured out of nothing. It can, of course, be a constant and not even be here. And then I set the scale with this setter function. This setter function exists here only to basically mutate the scale value within a range with the comp function within 0.1 to 8. Here I have a recommendation. Of course, it's a camel case. Let me fix it. Set scale. Yeah, that's a frequent thing if you come from a C-based language to Rust. I still struggle sometimes with it. So this is how essentially scrolling to zoom works. It's quite simple. I just take the central panel rectangle, and when it's hovered, which is this thing right here, when it's hovered, I just act on it. Now, the other item is if the central panel is dragged, I set this offset variable to the central panel drag delta. And this is just a vector of offset from the top. And that offset I consider when I create this dest rectangle, the other rectangle I was talking about. And that's the rectangle where I drew the image. It's smaller right here. It's as big as the image. And it has offset from the whatever position, the top left corner, basically. And when we drag, we change that offset. And finally, to have the image centered when the app opens, like right now, although it's not perfectly centered, and I'll talk about it in a second. I um I do this. I basically take the central panel rectangle and get its center point, which is XY vector. I get the image size times the scale, which is the rendered image. That happens on init only once, as you can see, when the vector is 0. And then I set the offset initially to what is the center minus the image size divided by 2. And I add here to the subtraction the width of the sidebar on init. And I need to do that because my central panel rect at that point is not just this rectangle with the viewport, but the entire width of the app, unfortunately. That is why it's not perfectly centered, because I have to also offset the top and bottom panels, but they are not complete, and I don't want to do that right now. And I might come up with a better solution that's only temporarily for now. And this is what I achieve with that. A very performant zoom. We are sharp up to 8x because that's the resolution I rasterize at. I also output the sizes here for debugging in the bottom panel for now. The original size, the display, the current display size, the raster scale, and the raster resolution. And yeah, you can get disoriented at some point, so I might add a button for center later. But yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. When I rasterize like this, the resource usage is great. Previously, if we rasterized every interaction, memory usage was very high, which was expected, of course. Right now at IDO, we're standing at less than 100 megabytes of memory usage. And when we scroll, CPU usage jumps a little bit to like mid 10% to max 20, but that's pretty fine, in my opinion, given how smooth everything works. Like there's the input and the latency and just the user experience is great. Okay, so this is what I've done off camera. And here, everything's getting a little bit messy. I'm still working in one file, although it's not that big of a file, to be fair. Even with the whole rasterization function for the texturization of the SVG, I'm still at 200 lines, which is great. But now we need to do more of that. First of all, the next logical step from this, as we have a working basically canvas somewhat, although it could be improved significantly, is to actually load the real image and start working on the top bar. So here we have this top custom menu bar without the Windows title bar that has this open file functionality. So this is where the user would essentially open the SVG from. And I would like to open a native file dialog on the operating system and then load the SVG that the user basically wants. And that would require using a third-party crate, I believe. Let me search in the Egui documentation for file. We have dropped file, but I might support drag and drop, but that's for later. For now, I want to check out, there was a recommendation of what GUI to use for file dialogs. Let me see. We have RFD crate. Yeah, I believe they recommended the RFD crate. Let me see. Rusty File Dialogs is a cross-platform Rust library for using native file open save dialogs, async and sync APIs. Well, that seems great. It supports Windows, Mac, Linux, and BSD, so everything pretty much. Well, okay, how do we use that? Let's first add it with cargo. And I'll open the docs for RFD. Okay, that seems pretty simple, honestly. Sync and async. So it's a good question. Should I use the synchronous or the asynchronous file dialog? And I believe the synchronous is fine because there's no need for the app to continue running while the user is browsing the dialog. That's what we care about here. Okay, well, let's have it RFD. And for now, I will just open a file dialog when the app starts, just to test the functionality of the RFD crate. All right here at new, file dialog, new, add filter text, Rust, directory root. Okay, let's see what will happen. And we can configure it more. Cargo run. So when the app opens, it should open a file dialog right now. Of course, it needs to download its dependencies. And on Windows, I expect it to use the Win32 API. Okay, great. And it opens the file dialog, and we have this filter, Rust or text. That's amazing. It's exactly what we need. Let's select the Rust file now so that we can see if it continues. Open. And then we get the app. And what do we get as a return here? Copilot suggests that. I also want to pick a single file. And I think that's it, because some file. And we have the pick file function. We probably have another function for multiple files. So let's run again. By the way, let me zoom that so that you can see it in case you care. Yeah, I can pick multiple files with this config. And I get the absolute path, which is amazing. By the way, that crate, awesome. So far, I really like it. That's exactly the simplicity I need. So here we'll say SVG. Can I just define whatever I want here? Set directory. I guess that's fine. Let's try. Maybe the home folder would be the best initial directory to load, but example. And by the way, it caches my previous position, if that matters. So maybe I should see if I can set the user home as the default directory. Let me see. Structs, file dialog, new. Wait, was that a chained function? Because I forgot, to be honest. New and then set directory. So we are looking for the set directory function. Set starting directory, supported platforms, all of them, I guess. And to expect path. Well, realistically, can I do that? I doubt it. And this doesn't support like bash syntax or something. And right now this is cached where I want to be. Okay. I mean, I'll leave it at root. I think that will be just fine for this case. So this needs to happen in a function. And this needs to happen. Load SVG data is where we load the SVG. I want a separate function that has to be open file. It will have self. It will be aware of itself, of course. And I'll remove that from new, paste this here. And we will open the file dialog. Then here we need to do error handling. In fact, we don't need to do much of error handling, only act for now if there's valid file. And if there's valid file, we will load SVG data. And I'll pass the file path. And here I want file path. What is file? Option path buff. Okay. I need to unwrap that. Okay. If file path is none, just return. Okay. So these brackets are unnecessary. And to load SVG data is called. Wait, here we have a problem. Expected path buff found option path. Okay, so we have path buffer, yeah. So we don't need that check as well. We only act if it is some, to use the Rust syntax. Okay, this is now not used, I guess. If SVG data is empty, so we can remove that. And now when we start the app, we should see no SVG and nothing happening. And that's great. Now we need, yeah, failed to load SVG. So we need a check here. Something is trying to parse already. And what's that something? I guess update texture if needed. Is that something? And what SVG texture expects? Oh, wait. So here we should rather just return if SVG data is empty. Is that so? Wait, what? Return is a function whose return type is not like okay. So that should be fine to short circuit this. Okay. Whoops. Let me go to source. And let's run this now. Okay, we don't have the error anymore. Now we need a button to load the image, which will later be this button right here for open file. But for now it will be, we can put it in the sidebar, for example. Let's go to the zoom out button. And here I'll add space. And maybe I'll just copy this button and paste it beneath it. I'll call it open file. open an SVG file will be the hover text. Clicked, then I will call self-open file. All right, let's check now. Open file. Good. That's very good. What if I want another SVG? Do I have one? I don't think so. But let's download some. SVG graphics. SVG repo. Just download some vectors. Great. Let's try it out now. It is taking a while. Oh, it didn't work the second time. Why is that? It doesn't... Wait, we don't call the function. So right now we rasterized the SVG and update it only once. When was that? Update texture if needed is if texture is none. So we can not call it here at all. Not check. And just call it when the file is open. World SVG data. And then update texture. And I will self-update texture if needed. Let me see if that will fix the error. Yes, it does. And we can just call this update texture because it's no longer if needed. I mean, that's not included in the logic anymore. Let's see. Run. Here we go. Let me zoom the UI a bit because I know in the video it's not that clear. I will open this one first. We have an error. We panicked. Texture SVG cache has size 6400 by 6400, but the maximum texture height is 2048. I'm not sure why that is. There's some limitations to the size, I guess. Let me open the SVG I was testing with so far and see if that will keep working. No. So what changed here? I mean, I call this honestly, I don't understand the difference between before and now. I call the update texture here. Um, Expect context. Here I pass context default, and this was recommended by Copilot, but I don't know if that is correct because here I don't have the context. Honestly, I could pass it. It might be better to do that. That might be an issue, looking at it. But I need to pass it here as well. And open file whenever I use it. Pass context. All right, let's check again. Wait, provide the argument. Vault SVG data. Okay. It should be okay now. Let's check again. Okay, it works now. Now let me check if I can change the image with another one. And I can. That's good. And there are some gaps here, but that's how this vector graphic is drawn. Okay, that's quite nice. So we have the open file functionality. And I have some icons here. Let's check them out. So for cases like this one, you should be able to change the viewport, the canvas background. And I still don't have the canvas background, which I have planned. I want also to have this grid. And you should be able to change it real time to white, black, or different color, maybe even a color picker. But that's nice. So now I would like to start building the top bar thing as we have this open file button, just to start building this one by one. And thankfully, I already have a top bar right here. I just have to remove some items from it. And let's see. We have a menu bar, which I completely don't need. Global team preferences or whatever. So this should give me an empty top bar. And I will first move this button. What is it? Here it is. Let's see. Okay, paste it here. That's a start. And let's go to add space. Scroll down and remove the last space here that's left over. So now my new button should be where its position should be originally in the design. Okay. I am fine with that for now. I mean, I have to adjust the styles here, of course, at some point, all of them, but I want the elements at this point. Now, we would like a custom title bar. I don't know if I want to work on that right now. Probably. I probably want to. Let's see. Egui custom title bar. I think there was a demo. Custom window frame. Okay. So how do we achieve that? This is a demo. Let me zoom it in. This is the main function. Custom window frame. There's nothing special here, I think. With decorations false hides the OS specific chroma around the window. With transparent true to have rounded corners. Okay, so these two things should disable the Windows and other platforms UI. Let's do that first, and the rest should be straightforward. Sorry, not here. Where's that in viewport builder default, right? Yeah. With decorations and with transparency. True. I think that's what it was. With transparent. Okay, let's check again. All right. Well, we cannot drag anywhere. We cannot close as well, but at least we've hidden the Windows chroma. Let's close it now, and let's see how to implement the custom bar, which will be where? Custom window frame. And we have new frame with corner radius that, yeah, we attach everything too. How do we attach some items to it, like dragging the entire window? I'm guessing, title bar, drag started by, primary pointer, context and viewport command, start drag. And all else seems to be quite straightforward. Okay, let's start from the custom window frame, the panel frame, I guess. And I need that in the app, here where all of my panels are. I will start with a panel frame. And all of these panels, do I use the default? No, but before show, I have to set frame to panel frame. That should also add my corner radius. So we attach this to the frame and of course, this one. And this one. And this syntax is probably better. By the way, all of this needs to be heavily refactored. Although it's not that much code still, but it needs to be refactored. It's getting a little bit messy, but we'll do that. Okay. We got rounded corners without wanting them at all. Let me see. Realistically, I only wanted one frame and to add a couple of items to it, not that. Title bar UI. Okay, so I guess I need to do something else. I need to, let me go to my user interface. I don't need to frame everything, rather, can I have this within that central panel? I guess that would be another approach. Let's run again. Okay, so this is the approach I should probably take. Okay, let's see. Let's move these two panels inside the current central panel to see if that, but take them properly. Okay. Like this. Indent. Nicely. Remove some white space. Let's just see the top again. Okay. Well, I want to check the frame setting. I don't want it on anything anymore. Yeah. Frame. No, not this. Frame. Panel frame should be only here, not here. Okay, that's what we wanted. Let's see if it works. That's for rounding. I guess it doesn't work at all. I guess that's because What would that be? Well, because I probably need another panel here. Or can I encompass these? Within. Yeah, let's do that. I can later unnest them. So Egui central panel, and then what do I have? Show. Yeah, let's copy the entire line. Okay. And that will encompass the entire thing, which will have a central panel. And that central panel, so I will close it right here and re-indent everything once more. Now that is not efficient. They don't need to be nested like that. I just want to see if that will achieve what I'm trying to do. It does not at all. Let me cut the top bottom panel again and put it back here. In that too, the two side panels. They need to be outside of the central panel for sure. Let me re-indent everything again. The entire file. Let me check now, because now the hierarchy is more in line with the example. Okay, I don't like that. It's not working. But why? Because I guess my panels are overlapping that. Okay, let's not focus on the actual frame. We can troubleshoot that a little bit at a later stage. I don't want to waste too much time on that. Given that we don't have a close button and all that. So let's remove panel frame for now, and this central panel and the scope we just introduced right here. Re-indent everything, and I just need to find panel frame. Let me go back to the UI. This is holding the texture. Yeah, okay. This is what we care about. Now we have the normal UI again, and we need to implement the dragging first. Let me see where it is. So we had this. Yeah, if title bar response, drag started by. So I need the title bar response. In my case, I need the response of the top panel. I think I can add it here. And I think the response can be accessed by like this. And here I have CTX. Can I do that? And I'm guessing these are imported from Egui. Let's see if the OSP errors will disappear. Okay, let's try again. So now we should be able to drag, in theory. We're not. Why is that? Well, there's probably a good reason for that. Top panel. So it might not support the drag signal or whatever. It might not listen for it. Let me see. Where's the title bar thing? Title bar response. Sense, click, and drag. Okay. So my question is, wait, where is the title bar response come from? Though. Oh, it's this exact thing. Title bar rect and some click and drag. Okay, let's see. Can we add this interactivity to the top panel? I'll try with the AI to look up the documentation. Can we add the click and drag functionality to top bottom panel? We can with the rect. I'm just wondering if there's an easier way. Not a draggable widget. Okay. Yeah, so this doesn't work like this. We need to create a rect. Mm-hmm. Okay. That seems normal. Yeah. Let me just paste it and I'll remove the top panel response. I mean, I figured that out with the central panel before. I don't know why I didn't immediately start making the rect. Either way, that's how you do it. Let me just remove these unnecessary comments. So yeah, we take a rectangle. That's the max rect of the top bottom panel. We add some persistent ID. Why does it set that ID? I don't think that's necessary at all. Drag area. I'm not sure why it said that. Ah, because it needs it for UI interact. Okay. Okay, let's see if the drag will work now. Probably should. Okay. Now we need a close button. And ideally a minimize button as well. Maybe a maximize. Why not? Let me close like this for now. And here we need, yeah. Uh, let's do close for now. If it's clicked. I don't like that syntax a lot. By the way, that's in context calls. I don't know if that will work. It's just recommended by Copilot. Let's see if that's the API. Oh yeah, there's nothing like that. Let's see the example. Calls maximize, minimize. Button height on hover. Context send viewport command. That's the proper way to do it. Here I think we have context. So no need to retrieve it like this. And let's test now. We should be able to close. That is something. All right. We have progress. Let's do minimize, maximize. I don't know if maximize is available on Mac OS and stuff like that, but that's not an issue for now. When I test it on Mac, I can figure out an alternative or even hide the button on this platform. That's not a problem at all. And that will be minimize is last. Yeah. Let's check. We should have the three buttons. What's wrong? Item not found. Okay. Minimize and maximize. Oh, okay, they're different. What are they? Send viewport command, maximized. Oh, maximized false or true. So it depends on, okay. It needs to find out if the viewport is maximized. Okay, where should we do that? I think here. UI input, iViewport maximized, unwrap or false. So we get if the viewport is maximized here. And now we have an if else branching. I don't need all of that. I just need to send the opposite command. And that is this. And I think here we have a similar thing. But I don't think so. Let me see. What about minimize? Yeah, just minimized true. It wouldn't be open if it's minimized, so there's no need to do that. Okay, let's check. The 3 items should work now. Quotes, we know already works. Maximize, restore, minimize. Awesome. And we have the custom title bar without styles, but it is a custom title bar. And I can't resize currently, but still. Pretty cool. All right. Well, next steps. I would like to, let me just open something to see the current state. I would like to add some spacing layout, adjust the layout here a bit. And then we can work on the bottom bar because it's currently a little bit broken. You see it's only a bottom bar at this space right here, which might not be bad because realistically that bottom bar is only related, everything is related to the SVG. I don't know if I want it full width or not. Not 100% sure about that. But let's now work on the top bar and we'll focus on that and polish it as much as possible. So to do that, I will go to Ion Icons and download an icon for maximize. Let me copy this. I will frame these here in Figma and create a layout. That's the best practice. Okay. Seriously, there's no icon for maximize. Maybe full screen or enlarge. There should be. I don't believe there's no icon for that. Not that I can't just download a different icon and adjust a little bit the stroke so that it matches, but I just couldn't believe there isn't one. Let's see, size maybe? Ah, there we go. So how does the Windows one look like? 2 windows. Stack or a window? No. Size. Well, this seems nice. Or this one. Yeah, this one is probably better. Okay, let's drag it. The size of these is what? 34. So let's resize this one. Put it here in the layout. Scale it to 34. make it white. By the way, I don't use clear white because it's too harsh. I use white with 89% of opacity, and I hope that will be easy to implement later. And here the layout should be from this side, so that when we add new icons here, it's still not. I think that's because we have horizontal. Whatever, I want more than 3 items here. And this is very big. It's very bad. So I'll make it a little bit smaller. The icon is just not that good, honestly. Let's try this one. Or I could just download something that's similar to this icon, and just because I don't like these two options. Do we have maximize here? In the free icon set, for example. Well, not really. Have restore. That's kind of similar, but not really. So the maximize is a rectangle in Windows. And restore is two smaller rectangles. All right. Let's see what I can do. Okay. No fill, stroke. And let's try to get the stroke to the right width. I'm guessing 2 pixels. No, it's actually something like 2.5, 2.2 maybe. And now I can remove these. This has a little bit of roundness to it in Windows. And I would make it a bit smaller. Just a pixel more. Of course, I can make the icons platform specific. This is not a problem. I mean, having a few icons platform specific is not bad. You can tweak a little bit. We would need on Mac, for example, to tweak the title bar and make it left aligned. And just to mention that I'm doing all of this with the custom title bar only to utilize space more efficiently, because I want to have a toolbar and title bar at once. If you want using the native title bars, it's completely fine. You just waste a little bit of space. Okay. Let's go forward. And I guess the next logical step is to make the layout here, because currently everything is left aligned. Here I have a horizontal layout. And I want a spacer between these two. Maybe a spacer that expands. Do I have that? Let me check. How can I align items justified with space between them expanding in the title bar? I have close icons I want on the right and other buttons I want on the left. That will be faster than going through the documentation. Yeah, as I was expecting, there is a UI add space available with. So I can add that right here. And that will be a spacer that expands. Let's check. Yeah, although they are very far out of the viewport, I'm guessing available width is calculated in wrong manner here. How can we fix that? Let me close that. We have a layout. So with main justify, just Egui to space stretch first last widgets. Okay. Let's see. Can I do that right here? That seems like a better option either way. So currently we have a UI horizontal layout. What if, no, not this one. We add the layout right here, left to right, align center with main justify. And we currently have only one UI horizontal. We need to have two here. So two horizontal layouts within that layout, if that makes sense. Pretty standard in terms of user interface building. Okay. And let's indent that. So that should justify it. Do I have a syntax error? No, I don't. Let's run again. No, it doesn't. Doesn't do anything. But why? That's interesting. With layout, should maybe it doesn't stretch it fully. How can I tell it to take all of the available space? Let me ask. Yeah. Basically, I'm looking for an equivalent to with full. Once there's the full, and let's give it that width. So what? No, wait. I have. Let's look at option one. All the remaining width. So we use allocate UI with layout, vec2 available with height. Height is what? UI spacing, interact size, Y. Height of buttons. Why do I need to set height? Oh, whatever. I have height. That's fine. And okay, let's do that. It's fine. So above UI with layout, we allocate this. UI with layout becomes the second parameter. Right? So these two are wrong. Expected 3 arguments. For what? For vec2? No. I then pass this, and the third parameter is this. Is that correct? Really? Let me paste this and check it out. I don't think it is. What's the difference though? Ah, because I used UI with layout here. Okay, let me copy my two horizontal layouts then. Is this their code? I think so. And paste them right here. No. Okay. So these are my two horizontal containers within my UI. And now I need to pass the two values for width, available width, and height. So width will be UI available width. And height, I can hard code that to 50. I'm guessing it should be fault. We'll see a syntax error if it's not. Let's run. Will it work? We'll see. Somewhat. We get height. It's still not justified at all. The height is set, I guess. Why do we expect it to be justified? Allocate UI with layout. Well, yeah, I guess. I think, yeah, might be misleading us. So in this case, we'll go to the documentation. And I'll go to checkout, left to right. Have a couple of properties. Main justify, main align. Cross justify. Okay. So basically we have a flexbox like thing. I just don't see anything to stretch it. So let's see if this is the issue here. Allocate UI with layout, although it seems to work at least for height. Size, layout, content. I mean, I can check easily at least. Okay. At least the available width, if that is correct, because I don't know what I'm picking the width of. It might be small. 1264. Okay, that's a good indication. Let's try something else then. What if we go right to left to check the width? If that works, then what we know is that justification doesn't work. Okay, that worked. In that case, with main justify doesn't work. Do we maybe need to... No, I am already at the other method. Let me check the documentation for left to right again. Justify. Only one widget. cross justify and main justify. Let's try with cross justify. The axis might be wrong. Left to right, please. Let's run. Cross justify worked. But not main justify. Good, that's good to know. Main justify true. It's interesting why main justify doesn't work in this case. What if the horizontal layouts are doing something? What if I remove this? What would be the result? And for the test, I will even comment out the minimize and maximize buttons so that we just have two items. That's quite a simple case. Two UI elements. Wait, what did I do? I have something wrong. A bracket or something. Yeah, this. Okay, let me check. Well, open file expands fully. I don't see at all calls. Which is worse. I don't understand why that worked this way. With cross justify, main justify. It doesn't make much sense. Let's put back the UI horizontal calls. Okay. And I will check first. Let me rerun just to make sure we're at the previous state. Okay. Let me see if we can get something from the LOM, from the documentation that's useful. Two horizontal items justified along the main axis. It might give us a tip. I am just reading this and I don't know if it's even true. Yeah, it recommends just adding the two buttons immediately there, but that's not true. If you must keep subgroups, you must make set min width 0. Okay. How would that help? I don't know. Let's try. I don't know why that would help, but I can read why if it works. No, it didn't. It's probably just a hallucination. Realistically, this should justify the children, and they're not expanding fully. I don't know what the big problem could be. They're just children after all. Let me just fix my comment here. They should work just fine. Yeah, that doesn't seem to do anything. Yeah, exactly. Can only push things apart if at least one child is willing to take up extra space. Aha! Okay. Well, that is something. I need some kind of make left-right groups expand. I need to UI allocate I need nested layouts here, essentially. Let's copy that and try it. That makes sense. So, I mean, I don't know why it would work only if things want to expand. That doesn't make perfect sense to me. But I don't know. So, available width. First of all, I'm worried this will take whatever, the full width. But okay, let's check. Allocate, vec2, left width 50, layout left to right, center. Remove that button and paste mine. So this basically makes the same layout but nested. And then I need to repeat the same thing again for the right part. Let me just indent that. UI horizontal, UI button. We have only one button. Right width. Well, why is that? Okay, let's say I'm wondering, why do we call them twice? Realistically, maybe calling it here would reserve width. But I'm not very hopeful about this example, honestly. Let's see. I think it's a complete hallucination on the LLM's part. Okay, UI, if button clicked, let me re-indent that properly. And let's test again. Do we get justification now? No, we don't. Actually, it's so, like, no difference. Why is that? That's even weird. I was expecting at least one of them to take the full viewport. But that's not really what's happening. Here, I should probably have right to left. By the way, I'll leave these layouts. They are actually useful. Wait a second. That's actually pretty cool because, yeah, that fixes it by itself naturally. Now, the problem is what will happen if I would like to add a textual content, a title in the middle. Let's first add the buttons. After quotes, I'll add maximize and minimize. It's getting a little bit messy, which drives me a little bit crazy, but label. Okay. That's similar to what I want, actually. Where do I start it? Yeah, right here. Dragging doesn't work when you're on top of that. I don't want the text to be selectable and all that, but it's okay. Let's see. I want this label to not be selectable as text. Selectable false. So let's first clean it up a bit because new, rich text, width, size, strong as the necessary. Color white is unnecessary too. And that gets selected with false. Okay. That might fix the drag issue out of itself. What? What's wrong? Response doesn't have. Really? Wait. Yeah, that doesn't work. I need to do that, essentially. It was wrong that time. I also don't need these two properties again. Egui label. Let's see. Let's just run it. Yeah, and that fixes the drag as well. Now, this isn't perfectly centered because it's justified between this and this. And that I don't care about right now. It's all right. But the good thing is my buttons are working and I almost have a working title bar. The layout was a little bit disappointing. And I am honestly not sure why do I have a padding on the left and none on the right? Like, where does this padding here even come from? Like, if I zoom, you see that I have some padding here on the left side. Not sure where it is from. So I'm thinking, first of all, how can I add padding to this? Uh, what is this even? Top panel with, we have a rect on it. Okay, GUI with layout. Okay, let's see in the LOM or the documentation. Where in this structure can we add padding? In two places. I can have inner margin on the panel. Well, that's the best option, obviously. Here on the top panel, we will have show right here and that frame right here. And that we have symmetric inner margin, padding X, padding Y. Let me remove that real quick. What's wrong? Struct margin is private. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's see if it will fix itself. The OSP. Arguments to this function are incorrect. Expected integer 8, found floating point number. Okay. Understandable. Let's check now. Great. Let's run. And we have some... by the way, this became transparent. I don't know, because of the frame, I'm guessing. All right. Whatever. We don't really have padding margin per se. What kind of margin do I want to have? X is what? I need to see the layout of title bar. And to do so, I have, I believe 20. Yeah, it's 20. So the X should be 20. And the Y should be like, I mean, it doesn't matter. The Y can be 0 because I have height and justification, so it's fine. I think it works. Yeah, does it work? Here I have more because I used to have it even beforehand. Now, I'm guessing here with the default settings, cover 32 from black alpha. What about just black? Can I do that? Except without that. Okay. I'll leave it like this for now. We need to, of course, fix the rounding. I mean, the cover. I'll leave like this for now because I still don't have the exact cover system, which I want to use and everything. Now, the next part would naturally be to add some icons and modify the buttons. But I don't know if I have time for this. Let me see for how long I've been going. Yeah, 130 minutes seems like enough. So I think I'll stop it here. I mean, in this session, we now can load the SVG with a Windows dialog, with a OS independent dialog, and we build a custom title bar. Although it's not finished and styled fully, it is working, it's draggable and fully functional, which is good progress. So I'll stop it at this. Admittedly, the layouts are a little bit confusing for me. I need to read more in the documentation about them, and I will, because this justification doesn't seem to work as I expect it to. And I expect it to work like CSS Flexbox, and it doesn't, which drives me nuts a bit. Otherwise, the next steps are to create icons in the buttons, to adjust the styling a bit, add the rounded corners on the window, add back resize, implement the bottom bar, the real bottom bar, and then we'll turn our attention to these checkboxes and create a custom widget for toggles like we have in the design right here. And when we implement all of that, we should have a very good state, almost finished style. We will refactor a lot the UI, and only then I will integrate it with the actual SVG optimization. And as a final thing, I need to design where these controls will go for zoom, scale, and probably a button for center and actual size. They should be somewhere in here, basically. And we need to draw the grid behind the actual image and be able to change its colors. So a lot of things to implement, but we made some progress. I'm happy with the progress I made today. So yeah, I think I'll wrap this up like this. You can check out the repository for if you want to check out the latest code. For sure, when you're watching the video, the repository will be a little bit ahead. So some of the code might be newer. You might not recognize everything that you see in this video. Yet, you can see the commits and go a couple of weeks back if you want to see this exact code. Or you can just see where it went in the future. Hopefully, it will be in a better place, more developed place. Yeah, with that, I'll wrap this video. If you enjoy the content, of course, don't forget to subscribe to get notified when I release another one of these videos. And as always, take care.